Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Raphael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Raphael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Colin, thank you so much for joining me on Coaching Call. How are you today?
Hey, Sifu, I'm really good, thanks. How are you?
Exceptional.
Good to see you
Getting
again.
better every day, my friend. Every day.
That's great. That's awesome. Good to know.
So I've gotten to know you a little bit, but I think
Yeah.
we're going to go into a deep dive today, which is I'm
Okay.
really excited about. I would love to start where did you grow up, and if you consider people who influenced you when you were a little kid, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, who would you say that was?
That's a really interesting question because I grew up between I grew up on the west coast of Canada in British Columbia, and then when I was a little bit older, I moved to Switzerland with my mother. But that's a really interesting question because I kind of grew up in the middle of nature. And had maybe I was a loner back then. I had a very small group of friends that I still have today. You know, the same friends I had when I was 5 years old are the ones that I've got today. So, yeah, I would say it was a really small, tight group of individuals that were my same age, and we enjoyed nature and played together. And I think I was influenced by animals as much as people, though, just because I lived on a farm or a hobby farm, and full of animals and dogs and pigs and a horse and chickens and stuff like that. So it's a little bit of Dr. Dolittle, if you're old enough to remember that.
When did you move to Switzerland? How old were you?
I was about 12 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, so my mother was Swiss, and my parents got divorced, and she decided to start a new life in the country, or in that country,
right.
And we moved over there. I guess grade 9 or something, 8 or something like that. Yeah, pretty young.
Interesting.
Pretty young, pretty challenging. She dropped me off at school the first day, and didn't take me to an international school or an American school. She just dropped me off at the local school and said, you're going to make it. You'll learn the language. It was the Italian speaking part of Switzerland. And she said, figure it out. And, here I was 11 years old, and I figured it out. I mean, I passed the first year. I stayed after school every day. I learned Italian. I made some friends. Don't know how we communicated, but it seemed to work out.
Wow.
Notwithstanding, challenging. Yeah.
But you said you are still friends with those who were 5 years old at the time. You moved away.
I moved
so
away.
You were friends with them for 6 years before you left.
Yeah.
When did you rekindle, if you will?
I must have been a few years later when things like it must have been a few years later when it's an interesting question. I don't know if it ever went unkindled. Our parents always stayed they stayed close as much as you could back then. There wasn't email and social media and all that stuff. But I do remember trips going back and visiting. And then when I was a little bit older, I went and worked with them or worked for them. They had a winery, and I was pretty young, but I was driving a tractor and having some fun. And so as much as you could, sort of in the 70s and early 80s, stay connected to people, we did. So So yeah, I never really lost touch with them.
That's a beautiful thing. I wish I would have kept in touch with some of the kids that I grew up with. Unfortunately, my parents were not in touch with their parents. And when
Okay, right.
we moved still in New York, but we moved
Yeah.
from one neighborhood and it was miles and miles away.
Mm,
And I just lost touch with some of my friends. I still
right.
recall so many fond memories. And
Yeah.
every so often I wonder, how are they? How are they doing?
That's the great thing about something like Facebook, I guess. I know it has a lot of negative things going on around it, but finding those connections that you may have had years ago is pretty cool. Um, it's pretty cool to use it just for that. But
Yeah. I never
I
considered it.
yeah, no, look, I don't love the platform. I'm not on there every day and scrolling forever, but connecting old relationships like that is pretty cool. I've always had this thing in my head though that relationships last forever. So
Mm,
I try and nurture the ones that I have. Um, I'd rather have fewer than I'd rather have a few ones that are actually nurtured and real and as opposed to thousands that you might talk to once every 10 years or something like that.
right.
Yeah.
So you made new friends in Switzerland. Have you kept in touch
Yeah,
with them?
I don't think I, I really didn't in that era that I lived there.
Mm,
So I've lived there a few times in my life, and when I was an adolescent, I really didn't connect with a lot of people. I think those years are challenging years for people. I know they certainly were for me, moving from a Canadian culture to a Swiss culture and not knowing the language and just feeling quite different for whatever reason.
right.
So I didn't really. There's a couple of people that I'm still connected with, but it was in the second phase of going to Switzerland. So I went to Switzerland when I was younger, then I came back to Canada and did university, and then I went back to Switzerland to work to get my first job out of university,
Mm,
and so in that first period, I was just so lost that I didn't connect really with anybody. I was pretty much a loner and an introvert. And but in the second phase, when I went back and I went to work and I really wanted to be part of that world and that community, I definitely connected. And I still have friends today that are from that era when I was 25.
mm,
And of course, we're much older and grayer now, but
right.
but yeah, I've been really lucky in with all the traveling around the world that I've done. We've met some incredible people, or I've met some incredible people, and tried to stay in touch. And um, yeah, like I say, I think relationships last forever, so we should nurture them.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
as much as possible, I try.
Hmm. What was that first job that you got in Switzerland?
So my first job in Switzerland, I went to work for UBS, which you won't recognize it, but it was called I think it was the United Union Bank of Switzerland.
Mm,
So the Union Bank of Switzerland at the time was the largest bank in Switzerland, and you know, I thought that was a dream come true for me. I wanted to live the antithesis of the life that I had led until then, right? So I wanted, um, stability, financial security. I wanted a regular job. I wanted like a nice professional job. I wanted to wear a suit and a tie, and primarily all as a reaction to kind of growing up in an artistic family and
hmm.
growing up in the middle of nature and the forest and hobby farm and all this stuff. Everything everything that whole childhood, by all intents and purposes, is super idyllic, right? And
Right.
parents would die to educate their kids that way today in the forest and nature and close to water and all that stuff. I just didn't want that. So Swiss banking and wearing a suit and a tie seemed to be, I remember going and buying like my first, blue suit, and it was just loved it. It was it was great. And I stayed there for about 5 years, which I think 5 years is a nice chapter for things. And then I stayed in financial services in Switzerland, but went to work for myself, not myself, but with some business partners. And we started a company and ultimately opened an office in Milan and an office in Switzerland. And I think we had 20 or 30 employees by the time I left. But yeah, that was an interesting chapter. I call it the Seeking Fabulous chapter of my life.
You know, one of the things that you just made me recall is when I first got my first suits. And at one point, I was wearing a suit every day. And when I left the corporate America, if you will, I gave away, I had 14 suits. I just gave them all away. They're really nice suits, you know, expensive suits. I just said, you know, that chapter's done. Guess what? Recently, I bought 7 suits. And I love getting into a suit. It feels so good. And sometimes I'm like, when can I have an event? I need to go to, I don't have to wear a suit anymore for what I do.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, I want to wear a suit. It feels, and you're right, it's such a great feeling. You know?
Yeah, look, I loved it. And, you know, I spent 10 or 12 years in that world, in that industry. And I did the same thing. When I left, I gave all my Ermenegildo Zegna Italian suits to my friend who was going to stay in Swiss banking. He's still there. He might still be wearing them. I don't know, but probably not. But I gave a mountain of them away. It was just like, oh my God, so many clothes. But I agree with you. Once in a while, it's great to put on a suit and a blazer and you know, a tie and clean yourself up. I do that less now because of what I do, but also I live in the country, so you know, I would look really out of place if I walked down to the water or the pub or something in my suit. People would be going like, "What's wrong with you?" So, but they're fun. It's good to tidy yourself. It's good to clean yourself up once in a while and feel good about yourself.
No, every so often, you know, I look forward to going to an event, and when I was going to events, they were like, "Oh, you know, jeans and a nice shirt is fine," and I'm like, "That's cool, but maybe I'll wear a suit this time around."
Yeah.
And when I showed up the last one, I was in a suit. They're like, "Oh, nice suit." I'm like, "Oh, thanks." But I felt good in it. And then for someone else to acknowledge it, I was like, "Okay, I did the right thing. I wore a good suit today."
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do the same thing at home too. Sometimes I'll be here and like I said, it's the countryside and I'm in my den and I don't need to dress up, but sometimes I will just for fun. And, you know, I'll spray on some cologne and I'm not going anywhere, but it's just like, you know, let's juice it up a little bit. And
you're going from the living room to the den.
Exactly.
That's the or dinner. Maybe, you know, you could get dressed up for dinner too, you know.
That's true. We live in a pretty casual town, though, I have to say.
No, I meant dinner at home, you know.
Dinner at home, yeah.
You know.
Good idea. I'm going to take you up on that. I'll send you a photo.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
When we consider dressing up, putting on a suit, it's almost because we are putting on a different persona, if you will. And you kind of did that when you went to work for the banking industry because you felt like, I can't come the way I dress at home. I gotta become this person, right?
Yes.
So that's almost like a daily transformation that we go through. But it also sets you for a mindset, doesn't it?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. I think you can look at it a couple of ways, right? Because I think it all depends on the intention of that transformation, right? I think if the intention of the transformation is, I need to look different than who I actually am, then I think that's a little bit destructive,
Right. I agree.
for you, right? Or reductive, or it takes away your energy and it takes away your power. I think if you are putting on a suit because you feel like Superman today, right, and you're kind of exuding that confidence or exuding the image that or the feeling of dressing up and feeling great and polishing your shoes and all of those things, that's a different intention than I need to act this way, right? And I think it goes to living in integrity, right? So in those years that I was in banking and financial services, looking back now, my intention there was, ambition and success, and you got to play that part, right?
Right. Yeah.
As opposed to now, if I put on a suit and tie, or I was just at a wedding in France and I got all decked out and I loved it. It was fun, right? I mean, and the intention there was fun and joy and love and celebration, right? So I think it just goes back to, why are you doing this? Who's it for? That's the distinction that I would make.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 1,000%. There is a purpose to everything we do if we're intentional about it, right? We can set the purpose up correctly. So what was that moment in time that you said, I'm loving the banking, but now I need to either partner up with other people, which is what you did, and kind of go on my own? Why did that happen?
It was really, it was kind of a natural progression. I did 5 years in banking at the largest institution in Switzerland. I just was close to these people, and as I was getting closer to these people, the sort of entrepreneurial spark, lit a fire. And it's not that I wasn't dissatisfied with sort of the corporate banking world, but there was something light and bright about the idea of doing it ourselves, and the idea of having full creative, authority over what we were doing. And look, we started with plastic desks in a basement. I mean, it wasn't as glamorous as UBS for sure, but there was something there that about creativity and transformation and making something out of nothing that I really loved. So there wasn't like a pivot point where I said, oh, enough of this and I've got to start that. It was like the conversation started and it planted a seed in my head that really then I couldn't turn it off.
Right.
So yeah, it was kind of a natural progression, natural transformation. Now that ended though, after sort of 10 or 12 years in that industry. I did reach a point when we might have talked about this in the past, where I hit a real wall of okay, I've got all these things and I've done all this stuff and I've checked all these boxes and I'm having, beautiful dinners at Giorgio Armani's restaurant in Milan, and he's over there and they're, Dolce & Gabbana over there. Like it was quite sort of quote unquote chic, but holy cow, I was empty. After 10 or 12 years in that industry, my batteries had really depleted themselves. And that was a hard turn, getting to 35 and going, oh, I think I need to do something else here. Right. This isn't fulfilling me anymore. That spark that had been lit up, 5 or 6 years earlier, that went out.
So when you started realizing that spark was starting to diminish, if you will.
Yeah.
What did you think was your next step? Did it come to you? Did you say, wow, I like what's going on over there? Or did you say, I need to find something?
Yeah, it was very much, I need to find something. And it was, but I knew that something needed to be much more tangible than finances or banking or money. Right. I was I was done with shuffling paper around, right? paper with numbers on it. I needed something much more tangible. So I decided to move back to Vancouver, which, at the time was certainly, it was one of the cities with the top quality of life in the world, right? So close to nature, close to the water, close to mountains. Everybody does sports, great food scene, very healthy environment. So I moved back there, and I got into something that I'd always loved, which was real estate and design and master planning. And I think I should have been an architect. I'm a closeted architect, or a failed one, or something like that. I don't know. But I got into that world of destination real estate, placemaking, master planning, designing places out of nothing, and creating sort of, storied places where, families and people and stuff would happen. It was pretty spectacular, creating things out of nothing. So that was the move I made, but it didn't come from one day to the next. It was very much, I just knew that I needed something that was more real, more tangible. And maybe that's when I also sort of realized that how much I love transformation of people and of things. So, if you can walk through a forest and dream up a ski resort, and then work with people on its design, and then work with other people on its development and its building, and then help sell it and help operate it. I mean, that's pretty cool, right?
It is extremely
At least it was
cool.
for me. It was really cool, because it was like, creating something out of nothing. So that was an incredible experience. And I did that. Well, I'm still doing that occasionally, but I did that for 20 plus years.
I love it. I get you 1,000%, because I own a wood shop, and I design stuff. So I do architectural designs. I do all these different things. So I design things, and there is nothing like creating something.
Right.
But for me, I took it a step further, because I used to be an architectural draftsman.
Oh, no way.
And I've always drawn. I've always done drawings and stuff like that. I do murals. I do all this stuff. And I can see an empty wall, and I can say, this goes there. Or I can walk into an empty room, or a house, or a warehouse, and I go, this is how. So I used to do all the drawings for stuff. But then I said, building it, creating it. Oh, man, that's a beautiful thing. That's why I still own a wood shop. And I only
How many hours in a day do you have, Safu? I mean, Safu, you do like 50 things. It's amazing. I don't know how you do it.
Well, when you have a passion for something, you find the time, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So for me, it's not, I don't work in my wood shop all the time. If I have a big project, I'll hire people to do stuff.
Yep.
But when it comes to certain things, when it's a commissioned piece, then I put my total effort into it, and I'll shift things around just so I can work on that. But I also do hire out for things that are going to accumulate the time that's, somebody else can do, right?
Right,
so
right.
I just like getting into the detail. I'm a detail guy, So
yeah, I hear you. For me, at least in the past sort of 20 years of management consulting and consulting work, the details are becoming more and more essential. I think, we live in the age of knowledge and information. I don't think you can be superficial anymore. People will figure you out, right?
Not at all. So you just said something, management. You went back to Vancouver.
Yeah.
You said, let me get into the architectural, the real estate, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When did the management part come in?
That's a good question. Look, I'm not quite sure where it introduced itself. I suppose pretty quickly on, they asked me to do a project that was kind of the higher end of what they'd ever done, and they asked me to go and help with this project. It was a kind of a top end luxury project in Whistler, British Columbia, and because I had experience in Swiss banking, they thought I could speak to that audience, et cetera, et cetera. So that was really all about, creating a team or building a team around myself. And that's when I started to switch on the leadership or the management lever, if you like.
Mhm.
And I still work with people today from that era. I'm not managing them anymore. They've become successful in their own right, but I still touch base with them and check in on their leadership style and things like that. And as my career kind of progressed and I had more and more people working for me, I was managing people all the time. I think if you're in a leadership role, it's more about people and humanity, for me anyway, and their growth and what's
Mhm.
going on in their heads, as opposed to me giving them a technical, this is how you sell something or this is how you market something. So yeah, I've led teams for 15 or 20 years now.
Mm. Isn't
So I
it
love it.
something with that when we can put our focus in helping others,
Mm.
right?
Ah,
It's so rewarding where so many
yeah.
people are only looking to help themselves. But I find it very rewarding when I can help someone and they can elevate. So a lot of
Oh.
times I'm always telling, and when I was at different companies and doing different things, I was always
Mhm.
trying to help someone. And people were like, aren't you afraid they're going to take your job or they're going to do what you do? I hope they take my job because that
Right.
means it gets me higher, right? So for me, it
Yeah.
was always that development of helping
Yeah.
another person, helping them develop. And for me, even though I have physical businesses,
Mhm.
competition, people are like, aren't you worried about the competition? I'm like, no, competition is
Yeah.
healthy. It's a great thing.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
keeps me sharp for sure.
Oh, I totally agree. And I'd lived that on my own skin, right? So that first chapter of my life in financial services was all about me, like
Mm,
for sure. It was all about me, my success, my business, my money, my cars, my travel, my whatever. Um, and it got me to a very dark, depressing place because
mm,
it was all centered on me. And in the years that followed, I said to myself, okay, I don't think the world or the sun revolves around me, and it shouldn't. So I began to kind of shift my light and my focus outward, and that's been incredibly rewarding. Um, I've worked with and mentored people during that whole, I call it chapter 2, during that whole time, and it's 1,000 times more fulfilling, more rewarding. You know, give without expectation, and it's incredible what comes your way. So yeah, I'm a big believer in that
yeah,
approach.
absolutely. I love how you call it chapter 2, right? Because I also say that we go through life in different phases, if you will,
Yeah.
chapters, phases,
Yeah.
wherever you like. Because when you were a teenager, it's much different than when you were 5, 6 years old. When you're 25 is way different than when you were 12. When you're 35, way different. And it's also the perspective that we take on and how we see our importance in the world. Because you said it
Yeah.
earlier, the importance was you.
Yeah.
Now, the importance is others. Right?
Yeah. 100%. So I think my chapter 1 was self-centered,
Mhm.
me, and success driven. Chapter 2, I think, was really, I think, about self-discovery,
Mhm.
and kind of navigating, you know, the breakup with myself. It's like, what now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Who am I serving? What's this all about?
Mhm.
What is what are all these self-help books about? Why, what have I got to learn? So I did spend, the better part of 20 years exploring all of that, right? And trying to
Mm.
learn as much as possible and be of service. um, I'm in chapter 3 though now, Sifu. Chapter 3 is, I know what my mission is. I know what my
Mhm.
purpose is. And all of my light and energy is going in that direction.
That's
And
awesome.
it's pretty amazing. I feel like I feel very much on fire.
You probably feel like I feel, extremely fulfilled.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, absolutely. And the more I focus on others, the more fulfilled I feel, the more I feel like my fuel tank is full, the more
Mhm.
lightness I have, the more sort of freedom, and I don't mean like financial freedom or anything like that, or freedom with office hours. It's like a levity almost.
Mhm.
It's like a lightness
Yes.
that comes on when you are completely of service. So yeah, I think I do feel like you. To answer your question.
Yeah, I think, once you understand your purpose, once you understand your why,
Mm.
right? And recently I did an episode on finding your why, because have you seen my why? Right? That's what so many people are looking for nowadays. And it doesn't matter the age. I think it depends on if you understand why you're here.
Hmm.
So I think understanding why you're here and what your
Yep.
true purpose is. A lot of people, even in their 60s, still haven't found their purpose. They don't understand it.
Yep.
And because they've never even looked for it, right?
Right.
So they're living day by day. And it's almost like somebody who goes to work and they complain that they don't have enough money because they're not fulfilled. Because if they earn more money, let's say they earned, in a year, let's say they got $100,000 more than they had
Sure.
last year. All of a
Sure.
sudden they're like, oh, I don't have enough money. It's
Right.
because they
Right.
don't understand how they're living, right? So they're living
Yeah.
day by day instead of fulfilling that particular day.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I have to forgive people for that too, right? Because we
Mhm.
live in a culture that sets you up for that.
Oh, yeah.
The culture and the society that you and I are living in, the modern Western society, the abundant, wealthy society that we live in, um, well, extreme wealth and extreme poverty, but the world that you and I are living in today is I think it does keep people in what I call this kind of closed, repetitive
Mhm.
loop,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's a dog chasing its tail because you're absolutely right. You get 10K or 100K or $1 million more, and you're still not satisfied because the search for success and happiness and joy and fulfillment is external to you,
Mhm.
right? So I think those people that don't have that purpose or don't feel that purpose at 20, 30, 40, 50, or 60 is because they're caught in that closed loop,
Yeah.
right? um, and living that, not that lie, but that falsehood that peace and joy and happiness and fulfillment is external, and it is
Mhm.
provided to you by buying this or buying that or having this or doing this or being part of this or being in that country club or whatever.
Right.
So um, I do a lot of work of trying to help people break out of that loop,
Mhm.
because I even have something called the personal protection system. You know, that if you want to start breaking out, you need to create a system around yourself to protect yourself from all of
Mhm.
these forces that are coming at us, right? So
Oh, yeah.
um, I have a lot of compassion for people that are closed in a closed loop because of whatever fear. There's 1,000 reasons
Oh, yeah.
to keep you in a loop, but that's our job to help them out, right?
It is, as a coach. It's interesting when so many people come and their perception is something that we may have had similar perceptions earlier on, but we've come out of that, right? Like you came out of it, I came out
Mhm.
of it,
Sure.
and we can
Yeah.
see from the outside. But
Yes.
it's hard sometimes when you're looking from the inside and all you see is these walls of this sphere that people want us to believe. But
Oh,
when
of
you look from
course.
the outside, then you can see what it's really happening, what's really what matters, right? Because what matters on your last day of your life?
No, absolutely. Look, I'm with you. I'm converted. I'm like you in that way. But it's a struggle. It's a battle. It's proactive.
Mm,
It's proactive work to get out of that cycle.
mhm.
Okay, and so many people are in kind of a reactive space in their life. A lot of times I see people and it feels like they're in a ping pong machine, right? Or
Yes.
it's like bing, 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 just being hit around by forces that are external to them. So a lot of the
Mhm.
work that I do is, all right, let's get you grounded. Let's get you, let's get your leadership toolkit assembled,
Mhm.
right? So that you're crafting your future, not, somebody else. But complex times. It's not easy.
No, not at all. So you've done management, you've
Yep.
done banking.
Yep.
When did you decide that helping individuals
Mm,
alone as a
right.
coach, when did you decide, there are people who truly need my help? Did somebody just come to you and say, hey, I love what you're doing. Can you help me personally? Or did you say, I think I need to do something?
Uh, it was more of an evolution because I
Mm,
think I've been a coach for 20 plus years,
right.
um, sort of naturally. But I think it was about 2018, and I was in management consulting, and um, I was working with a company in London, and it took me, and I've been in sales, marketing, branding, and communications for a long time, but it took me 3 months
Mm,
to tease out of them what their business was and
wow.
what their brand promise was.
Huh.
Okay. And they'd been in business for many years, like 7 or 8, and they were relatively successful, but they were about to take it to the next level and look, get some investors and really start to expand the business. And I'm like, I don't understand what you do. Can you explain that to me? Um, and it took me 3 months to get that out of them.
Mm,
And during that process, I said to myself, I think I need more tools to help people understand how important these things are, how the world has changed, how marketing isn't the same as it used to be, how people don't want to be sold to, they don't want to be marketed to. We
mm,
live in the age of information. People know more about your product than you do, probably, right? And um and and then I also was saying, your mission and vision is pretty light, it's pretty thin, right? And again, today, because of the era that we're in, you need to have much more depth. There
mm,
needs to be much more connectivity. Where's the purpose? Where's the why? What's this all about? Why are you doing this, right? Can't be just for profit, because
right.
people can smell that a mile away, right?
Mhm.
It took me 3 months of work, and I said, I need to go back to school. I need to go back to school. I need to get like some coach training to accelerate this process for other people, for my other clients. And so it kind of meshed, like management consulting, go back to school, meshes with coaching.
Mhm.
And my coaching has just really grown, and I do less and less of the consulting stuff. Gosh, I still do it where there's a purpose driven individual or entrepreneur, and it's fun and joyful and playful. Yes, 100%.
Mm.
I'll dive in, head first as usual. But I'm mostly focused on coaching now. I think it's really my calling.
Mm.
I'm really good at it. At least I've been told. At least I've been told. Well, there we go.
When you're
Plugging
impacting
myself.
people, when you're
Yep.
impacting people's lives
Yep.
and they don't have a problem paying your fee,
Mhm.
then you know your coaching is doing well, right? That, I think, speaks volumes for itself. And when people come and they refer you to someone
Yep.
else, that speaks volumes. So for you to still be doing it, but here's the thing, you're somebody, and I can tell because we've had several conversations,
Yep.
you don't stay at the status quo. You keep forging forward
Hmm.
because there's new ways to do things. There's a different way. How can I help my clients? Because you
Yep.
decided, hey, if I'm going to really do this, I need more schooling. I need more tools.
Right.
And a lot of people, they only rely on the 3 tools they have, right?
Mm.
Or the 2 tools they have.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think to be a real coach, you also, to me, I think we need coaches ourselves. So whether it's schooling, coaching, books, anything that makes you that much better so that you
Yep.
can be a better coach for your clients.
Yep.
Because in order for you to be a great coach, I think you need to be coached, even if it's by yourself.
Oh, I love getting coached.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, bring it
Likewise.
on. Um, I don't think I've ever really stopped being coached
Mm,
all these years. And look, I remember my first coach was 2006, I think it was, and I was given a really challenging project to and it was based in Bora Bora, and we had to launch out of Beverly Hills, and I had no freaking idea what I was doing. I was like,
mm,
again, it was like, oh, hey, Colin, you know that market, you can swim with that fit, and I'm like, yeah, but this guy doesn't want to do marketing, he wants to do relationship marketing. What's that? How's that? So I had a coach who was, part sort of development real estate coach and part metaphysical. There was 2 of them actually.
mm.
um, so it was really cool because it was like left brain, right brain,
Right, right.
and they pushed me past any limit that I knew I had. And so I'm a big proponent of get coaching, even coaches, stay coached, even if it's just for a conversations that's as unbiased as possible. That's a sounding board for yourself. But so it's
Mm,
not necessarily your spouse that's listening to you talk all the time. I
right.
love it. I think everybody deserves a coach. Yeah, and
Mm.
I'm not plugging myself. I think it's so beneficial.
No, I'm
Um,
plugging you. I'm plugging you because I can tell that you, to me, a really good coach is somebody who definitely has empathy, who has seen
mm,
somebody do it, somebody who's
yeah,
also has been in the trenches,
yeah,
not somebody who said, in theory, I think you should do this, right? But
right.
they've actually done it themselves. They've gone
Yeah.
through the work. To me, that's a great coach, and that's why I'm plugging you. That's why if you look at the bottom of the screen, you see Colin's
Oh, there
website,
I am. Thank you.
colinskill.com, because I believe in coaching so much. This is coaching call after all, because I needed to create this to bring people like you who are exceptional to the forefront, to let people know that, hey, we all need a coach. It's important for you to find a coach that even resonates with you. So
Oh
what
yeah.
happens when somebody reaches out to you and they're looking for a coach? What are the steps that you may want to put them through in order
You
to even
know,
see if they're going to be a good fit for you?
for me, it's really instinctual.
Mhm.
Um, and so we have I have, complimentary discovery calls, of course, to see if we can actually connect. I think my coaching style is probably a little bit different. So I kind of warn people in advance, that um, it because of the experience that I've had. I've lived all over the world and worked all over the world and had the big highs and super big lows, and like, so I kind of bring to the table a lot of experience.
Mhm.
And so my coaching might be a little bit of mentorship, it might be a little bit of advice, it might be, I had a call the other day, and it was purely business, about conflict resolution. How would you have done it? What are the best steps to make? How can I make this more of a coaching conversation as opposed to a confrontational conversation. So,
Mm.
so I know the models, right? The International Coaching Federation models, of course, but I deviate from them. So I warn people that I'm not going to leave you out there trying to figure out what to do for a year. And I know coaching is not supposed to be directive, but if I can give you some advice, or if I can give you some mentorship, or I can give you some ideas, or share an experience, I'm going to. So that's a little bit how my coaching style is different. And I just warn people up front that I'm also direct. I don't let you hang around in your misery or your victimhood for very long. We can acknowledge it, that stuff might not be perfect or right for you right now, but let's go.
Agreed.
So it really is instinctual. It really is instinctual. And then if we jive, we go for it. And yeah, that's it. I'm babbling on. I'm sorry.
No. Listen,
This
is important, because a lot of people don't understand what a really good coach is going to do. They're going to care, right? Which is what you're talking about. Plus, also, I believe anybody looking for a new coach, or even to change coach, they have to resonate with them. It has to make sense overall, right? For me, here's a quick story for you.
Sure.
I was at an event, and I'm a social butterfly. I like to talk to people. And obviously, I'm going to see if anybody's going to make sense to me even on any of my 5 shows.
Yeah.
And so we were at a luncheon, and you grab any table you want. And I went to a particular table, and I saw an empty spot. And I said, "Is this taken?" And the gentleman just looked at me, and it was obvious it wasn't taken. He goes, "Oh, yeah, they're coming back." I said, "Okay." I sat at the table next to it, and there was a gentleman there, and there was a couple of spots empty.
Yeah.
So I immediately started talking to him. I looked over throughout the whole time. That seat was empty the whole time.
Right.
That guy he didn't like the way I looked. I don't know what. He didn't want anybody next to him, whatnot.
Right.
So I made it made it my duty to get to know this guy, because I noticed when I sat down, nobody was talking to him. He was just eating and kind of looking around. So I sat and I said, "How are you? My name is Raphael." He's like, "Oh, I'm Lawrence." And, so we started a conversation. I said, all the different things I do. He said the different things he does. And I said, "Oh, interesting." He goes, "I'd like to get to know you more." I said, "Absolutely." So we had a Zoom meeting. And I said, "So how was the event?" He goes, "It was okay." I said, "What was your takeaways?" You go through all this stuff just to make conversation.
Sure.
And I said, "Well, how many people did you meet that day?" He said, "1." I said, "Really? Just 1? There were 2,000 people at this event. You only met 1?"
Wow.
He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Who was it?" He goes, "You. You're the only one that took time to talk to me.
Wow.
You're the only one that even wanted to know, and you didn't just want to tell me about you. You actually, before I even told him about me, I asked him about him. How was his day? How was it going?" He said he came a little later, so I dove into who he was way before. He's like, "Wait a minute, how about you?" But so what happened is he now wants to start working with me.
Right. There you go.
Because I took the time.
Yeah.
So when we, as a coach, if we don't take time to find out about somebody else, I didn't even I didn't look at him and say, "Oh, I want to work with that guy." I didn't even know him.
Yeah.
And it wasn't me saying, "Hey, you should work with me. Here's my card." He's the one that said to me, "I'd like to get to know you more." Right.
Really
And
interesting,
now,
right?
he's got a big business.
Mm.
Big business, and he wants me to come to his business and help evaluate some of his procedures and all that kind of stuff. Had I not spoken to him
Yeah.
or be interested in who he was, that opportunity would never have come up. But so when we consider a coach, we should look at somebody who actually is going to care about us, right?
Well, there's a few things there, right? I mean, I think the most important thing is that you gave him your time, right? And time is probably, together with health, is like the most valuable thing on the planet, right? Your health and time. I don't know what's more important. So you gave him one of those, right? Time, which is incredible. And I think the second point that's really important is generosity of spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't go up to him to try and sell something, right? You were just genuinely caring, and generosity of spirit. I think it's becoming even more and more important today in the divisive times that we live in. To have that spirit.
Yeah.
I think that's wealth. That's wealth. That's abundance. That's one of the most beautiful things around.
Yeah. One of my gratitudes that I pray on every day is for abundance of knowledge, abundance of wealth, abundance of communication, abundance of longevity.
Yeah.
Every day I pray on it. I do it before I go to sleep, before when I wake up in the morning.
Yep.
I pray for my family. So for me, gratitude is how I walk into any place. I am lucky to be here. I am very fortunate that you said, yes, Raphael, I'll be on your show. So thank you.
Oh, God, thank you for letting me be here. Yeah, I'm the same way. I wake up every day and I meditate before bed, and a good chunk of that is gratitude, and certainly abundance and clarity.
Oh yeah.
I want to be as clean a slate as possible with the people that I work with. So I can't be coming to the table with anxiety or depression or any other sort of. I want to be as mentally fit as possible so that I can serve, and that's why I moved here. That's why I moved to. After this call, I'm going to take the dog out, and 3 minutes away I'm in the forest, and 3 minutes that way I'm on the ocean. So I chose a place to work from that is as abundant and nourishing as possible for me, so that I can be of service.
Oh, absolutely. I remember one of the times we were on a show and your dog came over and gave you a kiss. It was the coolest. And you're like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, no, that's really cool. I mean, that's awesome. Think about it, right?
The door is closed
when you're there and you get, because a dog, it's unconditional love, which is what us humans need to learn from dogs. We should give one another unconditional love. But I also want to talk to you before we wrap it up. One of the things we were talking before we came on live on how you're helping people by being honest, but in a certain way that helps them maybe even come out of their shell or to get a deeper understanding of what their needs are.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
I'm asking what we were talking about that,
how
right?
do
I got to go soft on some people, and I said I don't think you have to go soft. I think you have to go in a different direction, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we were talking, and you're right. The word soft wasn't probably the right word, but we were talking about how with whole human coaching, we work with teams and with leaders, and with my Colin Kingsmill coaching, I work with CEOs and founders and entrepreneurs, and I think I can crack the whip a little bit more there because it's like theirs, and they're in the driver's seat, and I don't know, maybe it's wrong, but I feel like I can be a little tougher there. I think with teams today, because the business world is, maybe I should be nice to the CEOs too, because the business world seems to be on such shifting quicksand these days. It feels like, or maybe on a rocking boat or navigating through, choppy waters. It just feels like the world today has gotten so complex that we need to look at people much more holistically, right?
Correct.
And that's why we created, whole human coaching. It's like you may be in a work environment, you may be in a leadership environment, but because of the complexity of the world we're in, you can't coach somebody and not ask about their nutrition, not ask about their well-being, not ask about their fitness, not make sure that all of the complementary pieces are also being taken care of. They may be, that's why I think you just can't go and focus on performance at work. Well, that person may be dealing with grief, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
So how do you not, and I know in marketing, I know you have to thin slice stuff and be super laser precision, et cetera, but we're human beings. We're complicated, we're complex, living in hyper novel times. So, I guess my message earlier was, be gentle with yourself, right? Don't be complacent, but be gentle. This is nuts what's going on around us. So that was really my message to you earlier was coaching. I think coaching today does need to be more holistic, does need to look at the whole human, and with gentleness, firm gentleness. I don't know, is that a word? Maybe it doesn't make sense. I probably need another coffee here, but
well, no, I agree with you, but I think you're looking at is EQ, right? Emotional intelligence, with your coaching, if you will, because I also believe, and you said that you're a little bit harsher with the CEOs and the entrepreneurs because they're the driver of that company, right?
Yes.
So they need to know the hard truths, and sometimes it's bittersweet, if you will, right?
Sure.
Because you can't sugarcoat it. Listen, you're losing money because you guys are doing this. Well, you're not going to tell a group that, hey, you're losing money because of this, but you're going to say, how can we change the dynamics of what we're doing? They may not need to know that the money's being lost because maybe it's a different department, but
exactly.
The CEO, the entrepreneur needs to know everything
That's
if
right.
they want to be successful, right? So that's why I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah,
as far as who needs to know what, right?
Yeah, and it's a buildup, I guess, right? Like as people are going up that sort of leadership journey, you can unleash the wrath of Colin at the top.
Absolutely.
Get you a whack on the side of the head some days.
Anyway. So you have two entities to your coaching, right? One where you deal with teams, and one where you deal with individuals, entrepreneurs, CEOs. What made you separate or diversify?
It kind of occurred naturally. There's a couple of other coaches in whole human coaching, and we kind of naturally came to this. Let me rephrase that. We got to this stage in our conversations that we felt that modern coaching needed a new perspective, needed a new way of approaching things. Really post-pandemic coaching, where everybody's values have changed, workplace has changed. Even the architecture of offices has changed. The whole concept of work is totally different than it was just a few years ago. So we kind of collectively sat around going, well, then coaching can't follow just the strict models of the past. we've got to look at things much more holistically, look at the whole human. What are all the complexities that they're dealing with? And how can we help create cultural cohesion in this new world order? So it was really kind of an organic thing, an organic way of looking at coaching. And it's just quite a different market than, Colin Kingsmill coaching. So I just decided to keep them separate, really, because they're two different markets. They're two different end games. I mean, ultimately it comes together, right? Because if I'm, it all comes together in the end. But whole human coaching is just helping create cultural cohesion, helping create a new way of leadership in the new world order that we're living in, of shifting sands and really of complexity. So it's about helping people, gain agility and things like that. So that's really the reason to have those two channels, is just two different audiences, two different approaches. And also, I think, also just for me personally, I love both, and I still do my management consulting. And so for me, I'm on a mission to help people rediscover their humanity, live in integrity, become fearless, and then ultimately be free from psychological suffering, or free to be unlimited in what they do, right? To thrive and in business. And I'm doing that through podcasting, through my Colin Kingsmill coaching, through whole human coaching, and the book that I'm writing. So I'm just this is my mission. These are my, my not distribution channels, because I'm not distributing anything, but these are my vehicles to deliver that mission. And that's really it.
I love it. So you're doing so many things, but I think they're all focused on the same thing, which is to help others, right?
Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, ultimately, I really love the idea of helping people rediscover their humanity. We're on this little pebble together. It's spinning at 1,600 kilometers an hour on its axis. The idea of living in integrity is allowing people to be who they really are, right? And becoming fearless is about, pushing people outside of that circle, that closed loop that we talked about earlier, deconstructing the stories they have in their head. And then, if you could reconstruct new ones, and you spoke about opacity before, right? Like how opaque things can be, get rid of those lenses. And then what happens? Then you become unlimited. Then you become free. So you're right. Yeah. That's how I see the world today. And that's how I want to help people become free and unlimited.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing what you're doing, and thank you so much for even being here with me.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Truly appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.
I want everybody to go and find you. Go to colinkingsmill.com.
Yep.
It's been running across the screen. Colin, do me a favor. Stay on for a minute. We're going to say goodbye to everybody. I just want a quick chat with you at the end.
Yeah, of course.
Everybody, do me a favor. Follow the show. Come on down and follow Colin. All right, everybody, have yourself an exceptional day. Make sure, if you don't have a coach, get one. And if you need an exceptional coach, my friend Colin, he's around. All right, everybody, have a great day.
Bye, everybody.